are back with another one. This one's a little bit different, though. Probably not somebody you know, but if you're a kind of a tackle geek like me and you want to know a little more about history of tackle and tackle making, you're going to really dig this one. Stick around.
Okay, McGee, we're off on the first W.
That's great all day. Let's go. We are back. Okay. So like I said in the intro there, man, if you guys like tackle, you know, most of the time we're on here talking about our own gig and what we're doing and future forward kind of thinking. This one's going to be a little bit different in that we're looking backwards. And, you know, I got to diving into some of the history of fishing lures and how they came about. And I stumbled across, which was very ironic considering I grew up in Northeast Ohio. I stumbled upon this particular company and this particular gent by the name of Nick Creme. Nick, welcome in, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Love fishing.
Oh man, you know what? It's doing, you know what? My year's been okay so far. I haven't been out a ton yet this year, but we've been getting them. My crappies are on fire right now, which is good.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to get out yet. Our lake is just now starting to get a little bit accessible. So
right,
a couple weeks probably.
I understand. So if you don't mind, Nick, a lot of folks might know the last name, and that might give a little bit of hint as to where we're headed here. But Nick, if you don't mind giving kind of a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and how that ties into that intro that I gave, if you don't mind.
Yeah, my last name is Creme, and I'm directly related to Creme Lures that started right here in Akron, Ohio, some 60, 70 years ago. I was a little kid when it started, and I remember my dad working with my Uncle Nick and my Uncle Bill. They're three brothers. And my Uncle Bill was a lawyer, so he was kind of taking care of the legal stuff. My dad was more the inventor type of guy, and obviously my Uncle Nick and my Aunt Cosma. But as I told you when we had lunch, you know, they were using those straight worms that were like rocks or pens. And
yeah,
they found a guy here, a chemist, who came up with this idea. It cost him $10,000.
Wow.
But that's where
which is a lot of money back then, even. I mean,
back then, yeah, in the 50s, that was a lot of money. You know
right.
what I mean? Eventually, that $10,000 was the beginning of the plastic worm, soft plastic worm, as we know it today. Because then they started selling it, you know, through Field and Stream and Sports Afield. Those were magazines back then. And they were selling so many, they couldn't keep up. Wow. And they were making it right down the basement of my grandmother's house, 460 Delmar Avenue, if you look in the history books.
Right.
Right there in North Hill. That's where it started.
That is so
years
cool.
ago.
And so I don't know if you guys heard that, but literally the invention of the soft plastic worm was made by your dad and your uncles. That is so cool. When I found out about that, man, I got goosebumps. Like it you know, you could kind of tell, I'm sure, when we had breakfast too, I was giddy. And, you know, I'm such a geek when it comes to this craft that when I found that not only it originated like blocks away from where I grew up, but the plant there, the initial plant was what, from the house then on Delmar and went over to North Street. Was that right?
No, it went over to Talmadge Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah, Talmadge Avenue is about maybe 7 minutes away from there.
Yeah.
And it was a nice piece of property that the house was in the front, but the warehouse was in the back. And that's where they started hiring people to hand pour those. And that's when they got, you know, then it started rolling, because they were one of the first companies that come out with that soft plastic worm. And once people start fishing with it, man, as you know, kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Oh,
Then
and
it's just a matter of people learning how to fish it, you know what I mean, in different
yeah.
ways. And you could see today all the different things that came from that. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of the actually hats off to Mr. Kevin Verdon for
Oh
publishing some
yeah.
cool. This is the history of the Creme Lure Company, 1949 to 1989. And Kevin, obviously you probably fed him a bunch of information as well to publish this book.
Well, he was one of my ex-students. I was a
You know,
teacher.
there you go. That's cool.
Yeah. And he contacted me and he was like you. He says, hey, I'm really into the history. He goes, I want to find out about all these, places that were right in this area that had a
Yeah.
lot to do with the history of the fishing, what it is today. Arbogast was here. DeLong was here.
Yeah.
I mean, these are companies that, you look, you're people my age, they've heard of it and they probably bought the products before, but he did an excellent job of doing research. Taught me some things I didn't even know. I have a copy of that. If anybody wants to get a copy of it, we can get Kevin's address and give it out to him.
That's right. And I think, I wish I had that information to publish here, but I think I bought mine right on Amazon. And I think that.
Yeah. That's where it's at. You can get it there.
Kevin does get it, get obviously credit for that as well. But he has some of the original tools that your family used, like your pops, Mike, was basic production tools. And some of these things, like just to give you guys a sneak peek of, just old coffee cans, like cut in half and ladles. And I mean, this is literally the start, of what we know today. I'm looking at machines, in front of me and that are made for producing these kind of things. And these are literally just slabs of wood and kitchen ladles and soup ladle. Do you remember like using those?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That picture you showed there was in our basement because they basically did that in the basement at Delmar, but my dad was doing it as well as Nick and Cosma and anybody else they could get. But my dad was a mold finisher, so that helped a lot because he was able to make those molds, and they had to be precise. I still have them. They're just about that long, and it's the straight worms and the scoundrel and all the different ones. And he would make them, line them up, put that material into that container that you saw there with that little light. Once it got nice and bubbly, they would start pouring them.
Wow.
And we've done it before. When you pour them, you have to let them sit, you pull them out, put them in a little water, then you take them out, you test them out, see how they feel and all that stuff, put a hook in them, and then you package them.
And originally these were packaged, one at a time, probably. Like, you were kind enough to provide me with some of this stuff. And like, this is one of the swim lures.
Right.
This was
that
made.
That one there, Rick, was my dad's second patent. He came up with that idea.
Wow.
And we sold that. In other words, when I say by we, it was me and my brother, Paul.
Wow.
We sold it. We went back to the old way and put it in, the magazines and stuff. And we were getting people buying it and then sending us, testimonies. Oh, I tried that, man. That's a really great lure. I caught bass, I got crappies, I got bluegills. And it was fun while it lasted, but eventually, we wanted to mass produce it.
Right.
And the story with that was my brother got on an airplane and went down to Mr. Twister. You remember that company? Mr.
Yeah,
Twister?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That, paddle tail on the back and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, the
plastic style grub, a lot of the things that we even make are very much like inspired by a lot of that. Yeah.
Right. But this swim lure you just put up there had better action than that. I wish I had the video of it. Because when we sold it, we would go at Chapel Hill malls and all that, and we go to these fishing shows, and we had this big tank, and we'd have it dragging across there, and we didn't hardly have to say anything. They'd walk by and see that action and go, "Oh my God, can I have a couple of this? Can I have a couple of this?" But anyway, going back to the
Wow.
story, we knew we couldn't make any money, but just doing it ourselves. So we contacted Mr. Twister. We told him what it was. He invited my brother to fly down. Mr. Twister had a pool in his backyard. My brother took him back there, put it on the line, drug it back and forth a couple times. Mr. Twister guy said, he goes, I want that. He goes,
Wow.
I want that. I want to sell that. He goes, I'm gonna give away 1 million of them.
And at this time, Mr. Twister was an established company. They were
Oh yeah. He
out
was
there.
an established
Wow. mass
lure
production
company.
shop.
But he saw that action and he said, oh my God, because it actually moved the lure. The Twister was just the back tail.
Right.
With the torque in this lure here, it moves the head back and forth and it makes it look like it's hunting. And when we made it, that's kind of like a fish head. And we made it look like a fish was going around looking for something.
I noticed too that it's unlike, a traditional where literally it's, you have a clean seam. So with most lures, you have literally, you could slice it down the middle and if you take it, it's an exact mirror of what's the left is the exact mirror on the right. With this one here, that mold would literally have to curl in and under.
Right.
I mean, and that I have to imagine just made a whole revolutionary action that people were not used to seeing.
Oh no. I still have those, and
wow.
Some people who know me, they call me and ask me if they can get some and all that. But the biggest problem was that mold could not be made. That was the biggest problem. My dad would literally pour that head and put a piece of aluminum, just a quarter of an inch up, and then make that tail cross over. And it would hook together. I mean, it was amazing. You go down the basement and watch him do it, and it was like, wow, the skill that it took to make it. But my brother and I, we were the testers. We fished around here, lakes, Mogador, West Branch, Mosquito Lake. And we would just go in there and kill them, man. People would go,
because of that specialized design, was that was the halt kind of for Mr. Twister?
Yep. He said he was going to give away 1 million of them, but he gave it. We let him have it, signed a contract, and we were going to get 5 cents on each one sold. And he gave it to 2 or 3 engineers, and they just couldn't do it. Right. And give that, keep that flat part. You could do a round one, but it didn't work as well. That tail was durable, and they would last. I'd catch 7, 8 bass on one, and then have to tear it off and then put a new one on. But wow, it was just amazing. I wish you and I could have got that tank and showed the people, because you don't believe it until you see it.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have a follow-up short. We'll have a follow-up short video or something to this podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually I have a test tank in front of me, but I didn't even think about it. And honestly, I'm such a geek. I'm so afraid to open this pack. This is this is precious to me, Well,
when we finish this show today, you go ahead and try it. Give me a text. I guarantee you're going to be going, whoa.
Okay. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, because initially was the soft plastic worm, it wasn't necessarily designed for action, but was it designed initially just to mimic an actual worm?
Yeah.
So that you didn't have to go out and buy a tub of worms. It was, if you're going fishing right after work, you just grab a pack of these babies, and they're, they're.
Well, that's my dad's first patent right there. That is the coil dancer. That was the coil dancer. That one did get sold. That my Uncle Nick, we went down there, showed it to him, just like we talked about the swim-lure. The swim-lure came 15, 20 years later. But that came out in 1963, if I remember correctly. And what you showed there is what we call the mini coil. They didn't make that. My dad did that. The big one was about 7 or 8 inches long. And, it had the action and all that. And Creme lures did sell that. And that was on the market for years. But we found that the smaller one, like you have there, had less torque. Twisting the line was not a big issue. And you you can catch fish with those. I'm telling you right now. The guy that I fish with, that he's a writer I told you about.
Yeah.
From Pennsylvania. He absolutely loves those. Matter of fact, I gave him 50 of them. He used them all. I gave him 50 more. Finally, I said, look, I'm going to make a mold for you. I remember how my dad did it. And I'll, make it solid. I'll send it to you and you can make your own.
Wow.
But what he does with those, Rick, is he cuts the head just a little bit, puts it, because he makes these little jigs, these teeny little jigs, they have the flare on them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Colors.
Yeah.
And he hooks that little hook on there and he just puts it on like 4-pound tests. Because he told me how he did it, and then he came over and showed me how to do it in my lake. And I'm fishing with him, and he just says, throw it out there, let it drop to the bottom, and just twitch it. He says that tail goes like this, goes like that.
Flutters
and that bass picks it up and goes. He says he catches crappie, bass, sheephead. I mean, he shows me pictures. Every year he gives me all these pictures and stuff. Finally, I just made the mold for him, and I gave it to him.
That is so cool.
And we communicate. We'll probably communicate this spring. But those minis, to die for, I'm telling you right now.
That's awesome.
Especially with that's the same material that my dad still had left over, when he passed away. That material right there, original Creme lure material right there. And that's why it's so durable. That's why the tails, they pull that tail, they don't pull it off. They don't break it.
That is so cool. So fast forward then, we talked about it in Northeast Ohio, or right in Akron, and then it went over to off of Talmadge Avenue.
Correct.
And then was there ever a North Street address, or am I missing there?
No, North Street. The reason why you're saying that is because
was that Arbogast?
He may have been. He was down there.
Okay.
But my family, my grandpa and the kids, Mike and Bill, and that, they lived down there.
Okay.
Because they had a store down there. It was kind of like a store bar, kind of like a thing. That's how they made their living. Well, eventually they moved up to Delmar. And then they did that out of their basement for a year or two, and then eventually they went up to Talmadge Avenue. But then they didn't stay there very long because, Ohio has unions. And you know how that is. You got to pay everybody, so much an hour, and that was hurting their bottom line. So they went down to Tyler, Texas. They gave them a real good abatement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when he bought that property they had a lake in it behind his house. Wow. And they started producing them there, and they didn't have to pay nowhere near what they did here.
Wow. So then they operated then with 2 locations, one in Akron and one in Texas.
Well, yeah, the Akron one wasn't very long, but they ended up closing it because they didn't want to have 2 businesses going the same. So the one in Tyler, Texas was a big warehouse. You were talking to me about a warehouse you bought. This one was even bigger than that. Wow. And we've seen it before. I mean, you go in there and it'd just be people lined up pouring those worms, man. They could pour 100 of them in within, 30 minutes. That's how good they were. I mean, they go bing, the bing, the bing, the bing, the bing.
And these were all like poured like by hand.
Right into a mold. Yeah.
Wow. Now this is probably, this style here is probably one of the most common like Creme classic.
Yeah.
Classic worm. The one that the very top one, color number 1, that color right there. Yeah. I mean, you can still buy that today at Walmart, Yeah,
it does. I've gone there and bought it. I take people there and say, I'm related to this guy. And they always say, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Rick, here's what I used to do with my kids. I'd give them an assignment. I said, you need to go to the library and look up Creme lures and see what you find out. And I said, you're going to see somebody in there that you know. Because my uncle's name was the same as mine. I told you, all first boys born in the Italians families were named after the grandfather. And the grandfather was Nick. Obviously, Nick Creme, his son. I'm the first son for my dad, Nick. And then even Uncle Bill's dad had a Nick. So that's how that whole went on. But it was amazing. The scoundrel, which is the one that looks like a real earthworm,
Okay.
That was their best seller ever. I mean, that because it does. You look at it from a distance, and it looks like a real earthworm that you would see in the ground.
No, is that the one that's right in the
Yeah,
or that's the wiggler there?
yeah. But
So,
the scoundrel though is usually all straight. It was all straight.
got
They
it.
put the wiggler in there. They try to get a little bit of action in that
Right.
tail. But it was
So then,
not the actual straight worm.
okay, so it went from there, originating in basically a basement, and then
Mhm.
took off to these people mass producing these by hand, pouring these into the molds that
Mhm.
were mass produced down and now in Texas. And
Okay.
then was there was a transition there where someone else had bought them out, and then it went from
Yeah,
there? Huh?
yeah. I mean, they were down there for quite a while. My Uncle Nick's health wasn't very good, and he passed away. And again, his first son was named Nick as well, but they called him Sonny. It was a nickname. And they had a daughter and another son named Michael.
Okay.
Sonny and Michael, they pretty much kind of started running it, more Sonny than Michael. And then eventually they just wanted to get rid of it. My
Yeah.
Aunt Cosma passed away. And then Night Lures right there, I believe in Texas, made them an offer and bought them out. And I think they're still selling it till today. That's what
Wow.
you see in Walmart.
Right. And
They
how
still
many
sell it.
people? I mean, I would actually love to see the comments. We don't have a live audience during this taping, but guys, if
Right.
you would type in the comments, if you guys have caught something on Creme Lures, we want to see all the testimonials below. I think it would be really cool to see that. And
Yeah.
I know we're going to get history or generations of folks who have done
Right.
this. I enjoy honoring not just and thinking forefront of what we're going to do and what our dreams and desires are to impact this industry. But I appreciate going backwards and looking at what was and how what was made and the groundwork and the foundation that was paved to get us to where we're at today, to where
Right.
we're coming out with very similar things, but making them in a different way, maybe a little more automated and much more mass produced easily.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah.
it's
Your
so
automation
cool.
is easy. Yeah.
It's so cool to see that, a ladle and a Folgers coffee,
Yeah.
go, you know what I
It was
mean?
all basic stuff. You'd go down that basement and it would stink. My mom would be yelling down there, Mike. We had to get this window and a fan because you always knew when my dad was making them because it would stink when you got home, and you'd smell it and all that stuff. But
And then the bags, you just literally probably
yeah,
have with the kids, you guys bagging them,
yeah,
I'd imagine.
yeah, we were
And
doing
stapling
that.
them to
Yeah,
cards.
my brother and I did that we came up with that cardboard there, and
Yeah.
we wrote the stuff on the back. I mean, we were just he was an engineer and I was a teacher, and we were just doing this in our part time, trying to sell that. But it was fun though, it was part of you don't really get to do that part. And we
Yeah.
always did the fishing part, but when you do that part, like you're doing, it's different. You get to talk to people.
Right.
We would have people send us testimonies, and we would read them and send them out. And back then, we didn't have podcasts and we didn't have the mass media because this was back in the 80s and 90s, maybe right in
Right.
there. But
All pre-internet. I mean, this is grassroots marketing,
right,
malls handing out, catalogs, and
right.
that's
And we had to learn how to fish. We had to learn how to fish for bass. I mean, my brother and I, that was the only species we fished for. That's it, period.
wow.
And that's all we would do. We'd go out to West Branch 7 o'clock in the morning, and we'd stay till 8 o'clock at night, man. We wanted to, try different things so we could tell people this is how you do it. You can fish them in the weeds, or you can do it over here. You could hook it weedless, like you do a straight worm, with that, or you could just hook the tip of it and just let the whole body go back and forth and see how that works. And people were catching fish with it. It was just a shame that the mold couldn't be made.
Yeah.
Because it'd be on the market right now. I know it would, because
Right.
it's the best action I've ever seen in my life.
Well, we not to tease the market, but we talked about, something potentially in the future where I'm still tinkering. So who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows? Well,
Yeah.
might be
You might
around,
be able to come up with something that can
right?
duplicate.
Resurrect it, or
Yeah.
But I got to ask too. I've been seeing this big old bass behind your head there. What's the story on that one?
Yeah. Is here? Where is it? There he is. There. Yeah. There's another one too. Often you can't see it. It's about a 3-pounder. That was
Nice.
when I moved to Silver Lake. That was the very first bass I caught.
That's
That
awesome.
was over 2 pounds. And then we did a lot of our testing of those lures in that lake, because I've lived here now over 30 years. But that bass there was, my brother and I went down to Lake Okeechobee
Okay.
in Florida.
Oh yeah.
And this guy took us out, and I said, "Look, I haven't caught a bass over 2 or 3 pounds." And he says, "Well, you're going to get one bigger than that." Well, I got that one there. That was
Nice.
about 8-pounder, and it was a great day. We caught it on live bait, but
Hey.
it's something to
Well,
put up.
I mean, in talking through the history here too, I don't know if you knew this or not, Nick, but the podcast before this one was Jimmy Houston.
Oh no, yeah,
Yeah. So
I knew who he was. I
we had
saw him down there. I saw him down there at Okeechobee when I was down there.
no kidding.
Yeah,
So
because the guy who ran this, facility was connected with Bill Dance, I think.
yeah, Bill, yeah.
I think he was connected with that, and that's who he worked with and stuff like that. But yeah, and he was out doing that one day, and I saw him
That's so
because I
cool.
knew who he was. You've seen him on TV all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But just talking through some of the history and different aspects of this of where we're at today it's so interesting to me, and I hope that everybody watching got as kind of geeked out as I did on this one. And is there anything else that you'd like to share about the history of Creme? And I know we kind of skimmed through it here, and but is anything come to mind that might be valuable to the viewer? Not to put you on the spot, but
yeah, I know.
I mean, how I noticed too the styles. Like it started with a couple styles, a couple patents, and it grew into, hard baits, and there were so many different styles.
Yeah, they diversified because they had to, because they were competing against Twister and
Right.
a lot of those other manufacturers. Because as you've seen, that's $1 billion business,
Oh
and
yeah.
and they had to do all that. But as far as the straight worm goes, they covered every way you could fish that, and they pretty much, once some of those patents ran out, they were always so well known, people still kept buying them, as they still do today.
Well, and everybody has that style now. Everybody
Right.
has that classic, style that almost
Right.
like a trick worm style looking
Right.
straight worm. And I have to believe too that led to the creation and inspired some of the other innovations like the Senko and some of these other more common worms that all started right with your dad and uncle. It's so cool.
Well, as you mentioned that, when my dad was creating that swim lure,
Yeah.
we had to go and check all those other lures out, because if you're going to get a patent, you can't imitate that. You can't copy that.
Right.
So all those lures you're talking about, we had them all there, and we tested them and looked at them and tried them, and they all worked. They all work. It's
Right.
just how good of a fisherman you are will determine how many more you catch. But eventually, when he figured that out, that nothing out there was like that, we applied for the patent, and it took maybe about 7-8 months, and then we got it. And then you have to get so many points. The more points means it's harder to copy it.
Yeah.
And then that's when we started trying to produce it, when we knew nobody else could copy it. But
Right.
unfortunately, we already talked about that part.
Well, again, I wanted to pay respects and homage to Mr. Kevin Verdon and his awesome research. And this is a thick, juicy book of a lot of details of the history of Creme. He also published a couple other of the history of like lure making or manufacturing in Akron, Ohio, and they're very interesting I highly recommend it. I'll put the link in the description below if you guys want to pick one up. Support a local writer as well. And Nick, if anything else you want to share, or are you good? Or
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stories, that could go on and on and on about all this stuff. But
right,
catching those fish, with my dad out of Mogador, trying it, and seeing it work, that's to have that experience with your dad is pretty amazing. Because my dad only had like a 10th grade education, and to get 2 patents in his name, was a pretty good accomplishment. And
for sure,
and he taught my brother and I the love for fishing, which we still have today. But
that's so cool.
You know how it is. These are fishermen that we're talking to. It's something special. It's just not sitting out there in a boat,
right,
all day. People do say that. How can you sit out there all day? That's so boring. Now you're missing the picture.
Yeah, that's right.
You get that one bass, that 8 hours is forgotten.
That's right.
That bass is about that big.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Nick, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the friendship. And if you don't mind sticking around a little bit, we'll chit chat a little bit after the show. And
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Thanks for your time today. And then
thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad you reached out to me.
Yeah, that's right.
People should know this stuff. I mean, it's just, if they care like you and I, it's good to know.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. You got it, brother. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you guys being a part. Please be sure to stick around. We got another one coming up here in a couple weeks. Check out our live shopping show that happens every single Friday, also 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We appreciate you guys. Later. Bye.